Valorant for most pro players is a game of ups and downs. One map you can be going 1-11, and the next you're flying off of Abyss and getting a 3k with knives.
This corner a couple of times, but 10 HP,
It's really hard to keep the same excellent level of play game in and game out, let alone for multiple years in a row, especially if you have reached the very pinnacle of success or skill in the game. But while some past champions and superstars have ended up settling down from their peaks and moving into being great role players that can sometimes pop off, such as TenZ last year, others completely vanish from the league after their slumps start. One day they're at the top of the world, and the next they aren't even on a tier 2 team. So I decided to look back at some of the largest career fall-offs that pretty much resulted in them retiring or falling so low in the regional scene that they probably won't return soon to tier 1. But before we dive into this video, I would usually say just subscribe to the channel or whatever, but literally I don't care if you do that or not for this video because there's something more important that I need your help with. A fellow VCT creator, Lionsblade, is currently going through a very rough time as his mother, who had already been dealing with skin cancer for the past 4 years, has recently been diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer as well. This has been very mentally and financially draining for Lion and his family, so he has started a GoFundMe to help with some of the medical expenses during this time. So please donate if you can, or at least spread the word a bit. I'll be donating this video's revenue as well as my last video on Chinese Valorant in an initial donation of $30. Every cent helps as his family fights through this. So I linked the GoFundMe and his channel in the description and comment section, so make sure you do that, and let's get into the biggest declines in pro Valorant history.
Push, Pete coming back through, another for Redgar, it leaves it all onto CNED, there's no way he gets that kill, no!
We are starting with one of the most recent disappearances, with the 2021 Champions winner, CNED, who after leading his team as the world's greatest opper to a historic first world championship.
of their kind to etch their names in the history books, and they did it in the shadows, surprising so many, and they've worked so hard.
Saw multiple years of struggle as he jumped around teams, with him ending up taking a step back from the game going into this season. And the story about what happened since lifting the trophy has been a weird one, especially because of how quickly his entire team fell off when they started their 2022 season, as we would not see CNED or his World Championship team in any international events, as it would completely implode during their trophy defense, as they would first miss even making it out of the challengers groups in stage 1, with CNEDs still being one of the best duelists in Europe, even being able to use the Prime Chamber to great effect. But the team around him would struggle to adapt, taking a toll on CNED's superstar abilities, as every game he was pushed to have to be the same world-beating Turkish opping god. But with the meta changing, it just got harder and harder, resulting in his KD and rating to suffer. They would get bounced out of stage 2 playoffs with ease and then lose 2 straight in the EMEA last chance qualifiers, with CETA now being diffed more often as the chamber rose in more prominence, allowing those more built for that than the high-flying Jet players to thrive, seeing him look more like an average opper now. And with the talent around him not getting any better throughout the season, this team and CNED seemingly disappeared less than a year after they were crowned world champions. But this wouldn't be the end of CNED's run, as with Chamber being nerfed and Jet and Raze coming back to the meta as franchising started, still there was enough name recognition for CNED to be pulled back into the spotlight, even as the rest of his team truly did fade away from important Valorant history. CNED would be trying to prove that his struggles in 2022 wasn't him, but rather his team around him causing him to do worse. He would get the perfect chance to prove it though, with a truly stacked team around him, as the Masters Copenhagen winners, FPX, would transfer their roster to Na'Vi and bring CNED in to fill Artis' role.
Hey, listen, I heard
your team didn't get partnership. What would you say about
joining Na'Vi.
I said that would be cool. I always want to play with Artis. He's super great, but I need to go now. I mean, bye-bye.
Before the season started, it seemed like this would be the perfect fit for both CNED and Na'Vi, as he'd be able to slot into a very similar position that he was used to, but now with much more skilled teammates. But that wouldn't be how it went at all. Na'Vi would start off just as teams expected, being a clear top team in the region, with CNED looking to actually fit well in this org, but the issues would only occur once the matches really mattered. They would barely scrape into Masters Tokyo after being swept by Team Liquid in their first playoff match, where CNED struggled with trying to expand to the much needed Yoru that Angel was trying to get him to use. These agent issues wouldn't stop in the regional event, but would affect him during Masters Tokyo, where in my opinion, he was officially dethroned, as here is where we would witness KangKang's ascension to the throne.
T1, I think, make the right decision here. They continue pushing. Yo!
While CNED continued to fade into people's memory, as they would be unnoteworthy during Tokyo, because while he diffed Artis, they still lost, leading them to be eliminated by King and EDG in what was a legendary opping performance, with him picking up 6 opping kills on CNED, who could only muster up 2 back.
Drafts as well to go. What can he do with it? Up in the air, the reactions! Dash away, 1 bullet left. Of course Kangang's going for it. He's feeling it.
They would win a match in Champions, but would still finish in 9th to 12th to end the season in a super disappointing manner, especially when you think of how this Masters winning core only changed one thing, adding CNED. So during the offseason, he and Na'Vi would mutually agree to part ways, with Na'Vi regaining Artis and CNED finally joining a Turkish team again, with the best in the country, Foot. With the remaining CNED supporters hoping that this switch back to a home team would be what would finally awaken CNED and start his rise back to the top, just like we saw back in 2021. And it really did seem like he was making a comeback, especially during their Masters Shanghai run. With CNED showing flashes of his former self, like against Dragon Ranger Gaming or Fnatic, who they were able to upset in a map 3, with CNED dropping 18 to only 6 deaths as Jet.
But the Turkish gods showed up to play. 13-3. It is absolute devastation as they cannibalize their own region and send the #1 seed team home.
They would have their run stopped though by Team Heretics to end them at a very impressive 5th to 6th place, the highest finish Turkey has ever seen. A truly great accomplishment for the country and cementing him as a Turkish FPS legend. But sadly, this would be just a fading glimpse of what used to be, as they would be unable to continue their international success, finishing in last place in Champions, with CNED once again being defeated by King, showing how the esport had been moving past the opping dominance of CNED into a brand new reign.
And now Kang is making them fucking pay for it. Oh my god, what a banger!
With this defeat, CNED would over the offseason reevaluate his career in Valorant and decide just before the season started that he'd take a step back from the team for the year and see his options in 2026. A crazy trajectory after winning the first ever world championship and being crowned the best opper in the game. But he lasted a lot longer in the top league than another 2021 Jet star, who raised the trophy during the second ever Masters tournament in Berlin.
Good for 4. Looking to work the ace with the Blade Storm. Hiko. He's got a util! Defo does it! My goodness!
If you're a new fan of Valorant, then you probably haven't heard this name before. But during Gambit's dominant 2021 run, where they won Masters Berlin and finished second against CNED's Ascent in Champs, he was the one competing to be the top Jet player in the world, with it honestly being really close by the end of the season, as Defo was a real Russian demon. But now, Defo is nothing more than a faint memory for older VCT fans, unless you closely follow the Northeast EMEA Challengers League. But we haven't seen this insane Masters winning duelist in anything Tier 1 related since all the way back to the end of 2022 season, with him being the only one that didn't make the franchise league from this team. So what caused this massive fall off? Well, it starts back in 2022. Fresh off a second place finish in Champions, they had even more hope and hype than Ascend going into the year due to how insane they were the whole season. The only issue that Defo specifically had was that he wasn't really cut out on the new chamber. He was a true entry player when entries were all that was needed, causing the team to have a weird agent pool as Chronicle would have to switch on to the agent while Defo was stuck to either Jet or Raze. In 2021, that was a perfectly fine agent pool for any entry player. Now, he was a fish out of water. And it was apparent as while the rest of his team held their own and adapted accordingly, Defo just couldn't. Going from him top fragging to within 3 matches in this new meta, bottom fragging and going negative every other game on agents that were seeing lower pick rates now. He would try Neon against Fnatic in a 10 overtime match, but all he could end up doing was going -8 and 5 to 10 first kills to deaths, leading them to miss out on Masters Reykjavik. They would get close to making Masters Copenhagen, being within 1 map of making it. Because of how much Defo struggled all year, they had decided to move him off of Duelist and try him out on Initiator. But that wasn't the solution at all, as without an actual entry style player, there was no match against the real top teams in the region. So before the last chance qualifiers, they would decide to drop Defo, and would end up performing noticeably better with an actual Initiator player, leading them to the grand finals, where they just lost out in qualifying for champs, leading them just like Ascend to fail to make any international event a year after lifting a trophy. And with this, Defo's Tier 1 run would be over just as quickly as it started. Since 2022, he hasn't played for any franchise teams, but has been playing in the Tier 2 scene primarily in Europe.
One of Defo and Gramek. He's been on the height of heights that Valorant has ever been able to give to a single,
but has also played with Chinese teams like Gank Gaming. In this lower league, he has had maps where he looks incredible, especially as his Jet slowly becomes more meta again. Back during 2024 though, he did get close to returning to the big stage, as with the French org Team Valiant, they would get to the semifinals of the Ascension play-ins, where they almost were playing for the final spot to compete in the actual Ascension tournament, but it wasn't meant to be as they'd lose. Since then, he had played in Tier 2 Spain, where he would help win his team a spot in Spain's Challengers, before jumping back to his home region in the Northeast Challengers League this year, where he has had the most promising run since being cut from Gambit in 2022, with Defo looking like a real solid duelist who's learned from his previous agent inflexibilities, now adding a third agent officially, with him leading to one of the top ACSs and ratings in the entire league so far, and has put them in a position to start competing for a playoff spot in Challengers. So while he has vanished from Valorant's popular memory after being at the top of the world in 2021, he has had the most promising recent trajectory in this entire list, and looks to at least be considered a solid Tier 2 duelist now. But someone who doesn't want to stick in Tier 2 Valorant and would cut his own promising career short came from a game that at one point dominated Valorant.
Issue and Alex falls, he's got another on the A site, Nitro! He owns that spot now!
Let's look at an old NA star who at one point seemed to have proved that Counter-Strike players were the best coming into the new game, as 100 Thieves' Nitro was one of the first big names in North America to take the leap from the established yet struggling CSGO scene in the region to Valorant back in 2020, being a part of the inaugural 100 Thieves team along with fellow FPS legend Hiko. During the first year of the game, before even the VCT was established, he helped lead his team as the smokes player to a trophy at NA First Strike.
He's blind.
But Nitro and his team's success didn't end just there, as they continued to compete at top level in the first full year, as they'd make Masters Berlin after defeating a Yay-led Envy team. And here is where he would show that CS players would truly succeed in Valorant, as it went way deeper in Berlin as anyone could have predicted, as they first upset the eventual winners of the event Gambit, then played in one of the most iconic early comebacks.
It's gonna be Zeke and CNED to shut it down. 12 is on the board, Ascend, a 1 away. Deke can only take steps, the gun barrel shows he knows it. They live to fight one more round. Call on those years of experience, call on it now, because don't call it a comeback. They've been here for years to rise above, and they can't do it. Nitro to close, a flawless round to win it on. And against the odds, against the round score, against every aspect of this game, 100 Thieves just...
While Ye and Envy got payback when it counted to stop Nitro from making an international grand finals in this game, his stats, along with his team, gave people a lot of hope for his career in this budding esport. But this would be the peak of his Valorant career over 3 years ago. This decline would be the quickest to talk about because of how different it was than any of the other players in this video. After they went on their run in Berlin, he'd only play one more event until 2024, as after losing in the last chance qualifiers, he'd once again switch games. Nitro just can't truly say goodbye to Counter-Strike. It's just over a year after switching to Valorant, he would announce his switch back to CSGO, returning to the Team Liquid roster that he left. This would result in him fading away from Valorant's memory as the years would go on. During this time, he would have an incredible run in Blast Premier World Final in 2022, finishing in second against the stacked G2 roster.
The line is blindsided by the connector play. Nitro with the transfer.
But as it seemed like Nitro would never return to Valorant again, he'd once again switch games, moving back to Valorant in 2024 as a member of an M80 team, fresh off a second place finish in Ascension. Right away, everyone remembered what he was capable of back in 2021, but with the game having changed so much since then, he had to completely rebuild his agent pool, resulting in him no longer being a smokes player, but rather a sentinel, which would allow him to take the game slower and focus on aim duels, something that was more aligned with CS. He struggled early on this role, but as stage 1 moved forward, he started to look more and more comfortable on sentinel, with him even having a few positive games. But definitely the growing pains were apparent, as they would finish in 4th during the split, which was enough to make the mid-season cup. But being the second best team in the region in Tier 2 last year, this was below expectations, especially after they were eliminated before the grand finals in a 2-0 sweep against Turtle Troop. After losing to their other main competition for Ascension and Oxygen during the first week of Stage 2, with Nitro bottom fragging, it seemed like Nitro and M80 decided it was best for him to step back from the starting roster. This would be his final Valorant game, as he would for the second time announce that he'd be leaving Valorant to return to his beloved CS, with the introduction of CS2, where he has since played with NRG. While I have no idea if we will see in 3 years him randomly decide to return to Valorant, it seems very likely that we'll no longer see him again. Make sure you check out or spread Lion Blades' GoFundMe. You could really be helping someone in a time of need. It's down in the description and pinned in the comments. Also check out Exit Frag, the podcast channel me and Zeph have together, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out when that happens.